Time to begin class. Welcome wherever you're viewing from. We are tackling the Pursuit of Holiness. Been on it for a number of weeks and got a little over a month to go, so maybe we will have scratched the surface by then. A little review of where we've been. We spent the first week defining holiness. Learned a few things about it, that it is the expected standard for Christians. It's not sinlessness. It just means being set apart for God. Then we spent a couple of weeks talking about understanding what that means, what holiness really is, and we talked about the fact that we are holy. Positionally, we are holy in Christ, set apart for God in that sense, promised eternal life and all the other things that go with it. But we are also working on holiness, which is the practical part of holiness. We're hopefully getting better at it all the time. So a little better understanding, hopefully. Then we spent a week talking about our example, who is Christ. And we learned that he was holy before he was sinless. He wasn't holy because he was sinless. He was sinless because he was holy. He was so set apart for God that he always did what pleased God. And then the last few weeks, we've been working on how we pursue holiness, how we go about this working on holiness. And we looked at Romans 8:13 that said, by the Spirit, you. That's the two parts of working on holiness, how we pursue it. The Spirit helps, but we have a responsibility also. So that's kind of where we've been. Let's kind of go over the last couple of weeks a little bit since it ties into tonight. The by the Spirit part, we looked at a number of verses that said we are strengthened with power so that we can live a holy life. We're strengthened with power through the Spirit in our inner being. And we're promised that God works in you. So that's the Spirit part. But then the responsibility part for us is we are supposed to not let sin reign. We're supposed to put to death the deeds of the body. We're supposed to throw off sin and resist the devil and make every effort to be holy. We kind of ran out of time last week, so I didn't finish tying all those together. Got to thinking afterwards, we spent the whole night last week talking about the you part, the responsibility, and in fact, I saved that slide of that. We looked at these verses that said our part takes effort, takes conviction, takes sacrifice, takes discipline. And all that's true. But we kind of quit there without tying them back together, so let's do that real quickly. Don't forget the Spirit part. We just look at this part, and it sounds like kind of an impossible task. We've got to do all this stuff. And we do have that responsibility, but with the Spirit part, we combine all this. Ask the Holy Spirit for help. That's what he's there for. He is to help us become more Christ-like. So ask him, and we don't have to know exactly what to ask for. That's one of the things we learned about the Spirit is he knows what we need. He conveys our inner desires, what we need and can't even express. He conveys that to God. So ask the Spirit for help on this responsibility part of it. Something as simple as telling God, I want to be holy. I don't know what I need to progress in that perhaps, but have the Spirit help me. Increase my conviction. I don't think I have enough conviction. I don't think I have enough discipline. Help me in that. Increase my discipline. Show me where I can sacrifice. Show me where I can improve my efforts toward holiness. Put people in my path that help me toward holiness. Begin to ask for that. Put that in your prayers, and the Holy Spirit will help. Once again, that's His role in our lives. So I want to make sure we get that tied together, that yes, we have a personal responsibility, and it's important, but we don't do it alone. We do it ourselves, but we don't do it alone. Okay, so that's kind of where we've been. Tonight, next step is, let's talk about the world system a little bit. The world, what this is, how we pursue holiness, but now we're going to start getting into some more practical, if you will, part of it, and understanding how the world works and how we pursue holiness in it. So I think a key part of it is understanding the world system, I call it, and we'll see why I call it that in just a moment. The world, the Bible's very black and white. It contrasts Christian living, holy living, godly living with worldliness. And it contrasts the world, the physical world, with the spiritual world. The world is a big concept or topic in the Bible, and to really understand it, I think we got to work on our vocabulary a little bit. The Bible uses the word world in a number of different ways. So we want to understand the world we're talking about. Let's look at 3 verses. Genesis 1:10 says, when God created the world, He said it was good. And these aren't quotes, these are summaries of what those verses say. So that's the one way the Bible uses world. 1 John 2:2 says, Christ died for the sins of the whole world. And then James 4:4 says that friendship with the world is hatred toward God. Well, it doesn't take long looking at those 3 verses to see, well, those are different things. I'm not talking about the same thing in all 3 of those verses. So let's translate. Let's work on our vocabulary here. And I've put my interpretation of those words in here for you. So Genesis 1:10 says, when God created the world, and He means the planet, or the universe, if you will, He created the physical world. He said it was good. But then in 1 John 2:2, when He says Christ died for the sins of the whole world, He's not talking about the planet. Jesus didn't die for the planet. He died for the world of people. So let's call that the world of people, or think about it that way. James 4:4 says friendship with the world is hatred toward God. He's not talking about friendship with the planet. There are some people that love the planet more than anything else, they think. But that's not what it's talking about. Not talking about loving or friendship with the planet. And here's where I use the word system, the world system, and we'll define that a little more in just a moment, the way the world operates. So understanding the difference there, I think, helps us. For instance, John 3:16 has got world in it. Did God so love the planet that He gave His only begotten Son? No, that's not the world He's talking about. Did God love the world system so much that He gave His only begotten Son? No. God loved the world of people so much that He gave His only begotten Son. Okay? So whenever we see the word world in the Bible, we got to quickly translate, and we do that usually, pretty easily, and we know what world the Bible's talking about. Now, with that having been established, let's work on James 4:4 a little bit. It's kind of a key to what I'm proposing tonight anyway. James 4:4 says, friendship with the world system, my term, is hatred towards God. Okay, so here is one way to define the world or the world system that I find helpful. I think of it as the system of values and attitudes that are accepted by a society that does not love God. Okay, there is a system of values, there's a system of attitudes, there's a lifestyle that goes along with it that's endorsed by God and established by God. And the world has a different system. Okay, so when James said in James 4:4 that you can't love both of them. You can't love God and the world. If you're friends with the world, you're enemies with God. Okay? So he's not saying if you're friends with the planet, you can't love God. He's not saying if you're friends with the world of people, you can't love God. He's saying the world system. If you love the system of values and attitudes that a godless society accepts, then you're an enemy of God. Okay? Does that make a little bit of sense maybe? So if we define the world as the world system here, as the way the world thinks, what the world values, we can see where James 4:4 makes sense. We can't have it both ways because they're opposed. Okay, to further illustrate a little bit, open your Bibles to John 17. John 17:13. Okay, this is the high priestly prayer. This is Jesus' prayer on the last night. And listen to what he prays for here, and listen particularly as you read for a world. Okay, John 17, let's start in 13. Okay, Jesus said to the Father, he said, but now I am coming to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask you that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so have I sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth. Okay? We read through that sometimes kind of quickly, and maybe we take time to do the mental gymnastics to think, okay, what world is he talking about here? Because he uses a couple of different of our vocabulary words in there. So let's read John 17 again with my substituted words in it. So this one I put on the screen for you. And let's see if this makes our illustration a little easier. John 17:13, Jesus said, I'm coming to you now, but I say these things while I am still in the people. I'm still in the world of people. so that they may have the full measure of my joy within them. I have given them your word, and the world system has hated them. For they are not of the system any more than I am of the system. Okay? Now, I realize that it was the world of people that was persecuting Jesus and all that, but it wasn't the world of people. It was people who believed the world system and followed the world system. Okay, rest of the passage. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world of people, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the system, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world of people, I've sent them into the world of people. For them I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. And remember, sanctified is holiness, is they too may be truly set apart for you. Okay, so hopefully reading through that with the vocabulary changes makes us see what God's talking about. We live in the world of people, but then Jesus says, I'm not of the world. It didn't mean he wasn't of the world of people. He was in the world of people. And he sent us into the world of people. But what we're not of is the world system. We don't buy into the world system. We don't follow it. We're set apart for God's system. Okay. And this may be a tad confusing, so we'll just do another illustration or two here and see if we can finally get this clarified. Here's an exercise for you. You can do it alone or you can do it with whoever's sitting next to you, but I want you to assign a value to these things. Tell me what they're worth. A hamburger, a 1-carat diamond, a house, a new house, a pair of jeans. Okay? If you worked at it with your partner for a while, could you come up with an answer? Would there be a little disagreement maybe? Yeah, you could discuss a little bit, like a hamburger. What's the value of a hamburger? Well, you can get $2 hamburgers, and you can get, I guess if you go to the right place in New York City, you can probably get a $100 hamburger made out of Kobe beef or something. Okay? But in general, if I ask you, what's a hamburger worth to you? You'd probably come up with a range somewhere reasonable, $5, maybe $10 at the most, depends where you're eating and all that, but it'd be in there somewhere. Probably in single digits. A 1-carat diamond. And some of you say, well, I would never buy a 1-carat diamond. Okay, that's fine, but a 1-carat diamond still has a value. Okay? So what value would you guesstimate it is? I didn't have any idea, so I looked it up today on one diamond exchange. A kind of mid-range 1-carat diamond is worth $4,000. Okay? You can get flawless ones and you can get perfect cuts and all that, but a 1-carat round, kind of middle range diamond is $4,000. Okay? A house. What's a new house worth? Well, you say, man, there's $50 million houses. Yeah. Call a contractor and ask him, what would a new house cost me? What will he tell you? So much per square foot. I don't know what that is today. I know it's higher than the last time I bought a house, but most of us in this crowd and this demographic would probably say a house is 100,000, 200,000, maybe 300,000, somewhere in there. Not many of us would say, oh, 5 million would be a good house. Okay. We'd come up in a range there, and no matter who you talk to, there'd be some upper limit. Okay. A pair of jeans. Bear in mind, they cost more if they're holy these days, so. But a pair of jeans, and everybody in here probably got a different limit of what they would pay for a pair of jeans. You know, I wouldn't pay very much for a pair of jeans. I don't wear jeans that much. I wear them to mow the lawn, that's about it. So I don't pay much for jeans. But some high fashion people pay $100 or so for a pair of jeans or more. But still, there's a limit there of what a pair of jeans would cost, or what the value is. Okay, so get that concept in your mind that we can take things in this world and say, well, here's about what it's worth. Okay, now let's go just a little bit different direction. What's the value of a minor fender bender? Anybody have a minor fender bender lately? It doesn't take very much of a fender bender to be worth a lot of money to fix. Okay, but the value of that to you, what's the point I want you to get, is if it cracks a headlight and wrinkles the front fender, say $3,000. Okay, that's negative $3,000. Okay, the value of a minor fender bender is negative to you. That's what it's going to cost you. Okay? That's different than something having a value. I mean, it's still a value, but it's different than the prices we just put on all the other things. Kid breaks an arm, and since you get insurance, you don't even ask what it costs. But if you had to pay for it and took a kid to the ER with a broken arm, what's it going to cost by the time you're all done? I have no idea. $3,000, like, guess? $2,000, I don't know. Nobody's had a broken arm in this room, okay. I don't know what it is, but let's say $3,000. That's a negative $3,000. Okay, that's the value of broken arm. Okay. So if you look at all these values, you can see it. I don't want a fender bender. Yeah, I'd like to have a 1-carat diamond, but I don't want a fender bender. Okay, got the value concept in your head a little bit? If you do, you understand that every thing in life basically has a value, got a price tag on it. Okay? So here comes the illustration with price tags. And some of you have heard it before, but still the best one I ever heard to help me think about the world system. Read it in a book one time and stuck with me. This guy told the story to illustrate the point that we want to make. He told the story that there was a clothing store and some thieves broke in and stole the money out of the till and stuff. But while they were in there, they just thought they'd be a little mischievous and have a little fun. So they ran around and changed the price tags on everything. They just switched price tags all over the store. Okay. So when the store opened for business the next morning, they realized they had a robbery and all that, but they didn't notice that price tags were all messed up. So as soon as the customers started coming in, there was wholesale confusion. Or I guess it'd be retail confusion, wouldn't it? Anyhow, they came in and people started looking at things, and they picked up a pair of socks, and a pair of socks had a $500 price tag on it. Okay. Then they went over to the suits and looked at a suit, and the suit had a $20 price tag on it. Okay. They went over to the ties, and the ties had a $3 price tag on it. Went over to the underwear rack, and underwear was $75. Okay. They said, this isn't right. This is crazy. Or maybe they said, I want to buy all the suits I can, you know. But in general, there was confusion because the price tags were all messed up. The price tag and the value of the article didn't match. Okay? If you can understand that silly little illustration, the moral of the story is that in life, everything has a price tag, and God has set the price tags. Okay? Now, he didn't set it on 1-carat diamonds or hamburgers or anything like that, but the important stuff in life, behavior, attitudes, thoughts, everything, God set a price tag on it. He tells us what's valuable, and he tells us what's costly. Okay? What Satan does, what the world system does, is switches the price tags. Okay? And to me, that's the best way to think about the world system is you got to check the value against the manual. God set the value of things. Satan switches those price tags. He changes them around. In fact, let's say it this way. The world system, at best, at the very least, it rearranges the price tags. Okay? And at its worst, what the world system does is assigns a high value to what God condemns. What God has said has a negative value, the world system says is a positive thing. That's the worst thing the world system does. Okay? Go back to the very beginning. What happened in the garden? Okay. Eating of the one tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eating of that, what was the value of eating from that tree? Well, what price tag did God put on it? He said, that's death. He said, you eat of that tree, it will cost you your life. You will die. Okay. Satan come along. What did Satan say? He said, you eat of that tree, you'll be like God. That's really good. Okay. What happened? Okay. God established the value. Satan assigned a different value. And he went beyond just switching the price tags where it would get confused. He made it where the cost was horrible. Okay? And when I say at best the world system rearranges price tags, there's some things that, may not affect us horribly. What's the value of having a new car every year? Well, it's kind of a waste of money, but you got a little prestige and you don't have any maintenance costs and got a little benefit to it. And if you can afford it, it probably won't hurt anything horribly. But switching the price tags there rearranges things, and it makes that more valuable to us than it really is. But it probably doesn't ruin us eternally. Okay. At its worst, what the world system does is says things that God says are extremely costly. And death and says, oh, those are really valuable. Okay? So if you think of the world system that way, and you start looking, especially as you begin to think about holiness, which hopefully we're doing a little bit more as we go through this, you start looking at what God set the value of things at. What does God say fame is worth? Not much in the big scheme of things. What will people in the world that have bought into the world system, what price will they pay for fame? They'll give up all sorts of things. For instance, what price does God put on fame, and what value does God put on family? Which one's more valuable to God? Well, family. God says family is very, very valuable. People that have bought into the world system, will they give up family for fame? Yeah. Okay. The world system has somehow convinced them that fame is worth more than family. What value does God put on honesty? He says that's a very valuable thing. That's important. Read the Proverbs and tell them an honest man is a wonderful thing. Okay? Honesty is very important. Will people give up honesty for fame or power? Yeah. See it every day. Okay? The world system has convinced them that what God said was valuable, that they've switched the price tags. They've said this is a $10 pair of socks and that's a $500 suit. Give that up for this. And God says, nope, you got the price tags mixed up. Okay. Pleasure. What's God say pleasure is worth? See anybody in the world to give up something God says is valuable for a little bit of pleasure? Yeah. Well, what's God say life is worth? What's the world system say a life is worth? Well, it depends. If it's a baby human, it's not worth much. If it's a baby sea turtle, it's invaluable. Okay, you think the world system is a little messed up? Yeah, that's what the world system is to convince you, just exactly like Satan started in the garden. God said this was worth this. I say, nah, I'm going to switch price tags. Okay. The summary verse of that, of course, is Mark 8:36. Jesus said, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And there he's using world in the sense of possessions and things, I think. So if you got everything in the world, all the 100-carat diamonds you could carry, would it be worth losing your soul for? Well, God says no, but the world system says yeah. Okay, so switching price tags, assigning value to something that God says costs you, gets us all confused if we buy into the world system. Now let's look at Colossians 2:8 to wrap up here. Paul said in Colossians 2:8, See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. Okay? That's the whole lesson right there in one verse. Okay? Paul said there is a system of values that are based on the spirit of the world and not according to Christ. And don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody switch the price tags on you. Don't let anybody take you captive by philosophy, arguing wise things, empty deceit, human tradition. The world system will try to convince you that things that God says are valuable aren't. Okay? And you sit down and you start thinking of things, or just watch the news and see, well, there's a price tag switched. You'll see it every place if you start looking. Okay? Over and over, and when you get down to the basics of it, that ties completely into this pursuing holiness. We got to make sure we don't get bought into the world system. And we are bought into the world system to some degree, all of us. He's good at it. he's a master at it. Satan, I'm talking about, convinces us that things of this world are important when God says they aren't. Okay, so that's the basics of the world system. Now, next week we're going to talk about how that system works. And it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. There's only 3 things in the world system. So we'll look at those next week. If you want to prep ahead, read 1 John chapter 2. 1 John 2, verses 15 and 16 will get you ready for next week, and we'll understand how the world system works. All right, I think we've been buzzed into class. You get a little break before Devo, so visit with your neighbor a little bit. Figure out how much you'd pay for a hamburger.